Hi, I'm Scott Gardner. I'm the General Manager of the Embedded Vision Alliance, and I'd like to welcome the Embedded Vision Alliance community to a conversation we're having today with Loyd Case, the Editor-in-Chief of Improbable Insights. And we're here to talk to Loyd today about computer vision as a user interface. And Loyd, I'd like to get you into the conversation right away because I'd like you to help me walk through your background. And let's start back with your role as the hardware editor for Computer Gaming World. That's where most of us first discovered you.
Right. Well, I mean, in terms of my contributions to technology writing, yeah, that's where I got started. I should point out, though, for the people who are watching this, that I actually have a technical marketing background. So I worked in companies like Hewlett-Packard and Sun Microsystems and a variety of other companies doing technical marketing and kind of digging deep into technology, which is how I actually got interested in writing about it. And in fact, the interesting part of the computer gaming world stuff is that I wasn't a game writer. I was one of the first guys to write about hardware as it pertained to the people who were playing games. You know, so it was heavily PC influenced at that time.
Right.
Lots of interesting stuff about, you know, back then it was PCs were hard. I mean, today they're pretty easy.
That's right.
Back then PCs were hard, and helping people understand how to use their PCs and get the best out of them was what I did. It wasn't so much about the gaming side.
Excellent. Well, the reason I think you're probably a good authority for computer vision as a user interface is it wasn't just PCs. You also have been covering consumer products like high definition video, home theater, and all of the. And I've read some of your cranky rants about bad user interface design, and so.
Well, you know, it's really funny when people think about gesture recognition. They always go back to Minority Report. That's sort of the thing that people always think about. Tom Cruise waving his arms. In fact, what's interesting about actual technology as opposed to movie fiction technology is that if you recall, there were virtual reality headsets for PCs back in the 90s.
Right.
You put this thing on, and you had this puck that you held in your hand, right? And the puck had an accelerometer, and it could, and that was your gesture recognition. You could actually move stuff around, and when you moved your hand around with this puck, stuff would happen in the virtual world too. So yeah, that's been going on for a long time.
So why wasn't that product successful?
Well, because it was this really bulky helmet that gave you a headache. And,
also, so the technology limitation.
Right, and the need to actually have to hold something physical in your hand to make something happen on the PC. You know, with modern products like Kinect and some of the webcam style solutions.
Kinect would come up here.
But there's also before there was a Kinect, there have been webcam style solutions that did the same thing for the PC, in which it was basically a camera that you stood in front of or sat in front of and moved your hands around, and there was always a gesture-based API that would then interpret what you were doing and try to make sense of it.
So how did it tell where you, because it didn't have any ability to do a depth buffer like the Kinect, and it wasn't stereo. How did it actually?
Oh, a lot of them did, actually. What they did was, Kinect is nothing new. I mean, Kinect basically has a color camera, and it has an infrared camera, right, and they're parallel to each other. And these other solutions had something very similar. Either some of them used another infrared camera like Kinect does. Others actually used little sound wave emitters, sort of like a sonar-based thing. And some just used two physical light cameras.
So why didn't those products take off?
Well, think about the PC model for a second.
Right, yes.
You are typically not standing 6 feet away from your PC, you're standing right in front of it. And, unlike sort of again, going back to Minority Report, you're not using a computer that you're talking to that's kind of off in a different room. You're sitting right in front of it, right? And so I think the PC itself kind of needs to evolve. Also, gesture recognition itself took a different direction in a lot of ways on the consumer side. Not talking about games or Kinect, you had gesture recognition in different ways on things like some of the tablet PCs that are coming out, and even with things like mouse gestures in Firefox and some of the web browsers. Those were another way of implementing gestures where you didn't have a camera watching your face or any of that kind of stuff.
So, trying to figure out how to frame any discussion about computer-based or computer vision user interfaces, and can you really segment it by where you are and when you're interacting with the machine? So, is there an area where you've got to have gesture recognition for controlling your stereo equipment, so that's a living room model, and then as we talked about, is there a model where you're trying to control your PC in the den? Does that work? Or you have your tablet sitting there, is there another model that says I want to be able to use gestures to control my device wherever I am? Is that kind of the right way to break this down?
Well, I think it kind of depends on your usage model. Again, the single user sitting in front of one PC screen is probably not a great model for motion-based gesture recognition because you can always have a touch screen, you can always gestures with the mouse even.
So you think it actually slows down that interface between the user?
I think so.
and,
I think so. But
yeah.
in a take this environment for a bit, that I work in. So I work with multiple
This is
PCs,
your home,
right?
home
But this is my lab, right? I work
Yes,
with multiple
right.
PCs. It would be great to be able to use gesture recognition to turn on one of the systems across the room, or to launch a benchmark, or to do that. That'd be kind of cool, rather than have to have everything connected to my system, or have a separate keyboard, or whatever that is. Also, but in the living room, I think. Even simple-minded stuff. I mean, people are starting to become familiar with it, like the clapper. The clapper turns on your light when you want to clap your hands. But so I think as we have more and more, one of the largest growing areas in the custom installer base right now, the people that used to do just home theater and alarm systems, is home control, full home control.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't want to have to always go to my little touchpad that's on my wall just to do things like adjust light levels. It'd be great if I could have a specific gesture that says, okay, so then that will reduce the light level the way I want it to watch my TV, and then another one to turn on the TV and all that kind of stuff.
So why is that any better than just using your voice to control these devices?
Well, again, your voice has certain properties. You can certainly use your voice, but a lot of people actually feel more comfortable waving at stuff than talking to their machines. Also, with voice, the way the vocabulary, natural language interfaces are not very good yet, and so you have to use a very sort of stilted kind of jargon to do voice interfaces a lot. If you've ever used the thing that Microsoft has for cars, I forget what it's called, but they have, like, some of the Ford and Lincoln Mercury's have this voice control thing, and you have to use a very specific hierarchical jargon to navigate. Sync, right, Microsoft Sync. And they're trying to develop it to be more naturalistic, but it's still not there yet.
Now, actually, here's an application that, back to the PC, and I thought this was very interesting. So some of the monitors are putting in some technology that the monitor is watching your head orientation, and it will dim the backlight monitor as you look away. And apparently it responds quickly enough you don't even realize it happened. So it's actually saving the power, so it brightens it when you're looking at it, and when you look away, it actually can save the power.
Given that most monitors are like LED backlit, I'm not sure how much power you're actually going to save.
Well, but it adds up, apparently.
Right. Now, it would be interesting to do a video conferencing, where you actually have multiple people talking. It could be interesting use of gesture recognition too, because if you think about having to, I want to talk to that person specifically, and you can go offline and just have a one-on-one conversation by just pointing at a camera or something like that,
and have it come up.
Right.
There was another. This has been a few years ago at SIGGRAPH. I don't think you went to this session. They were talking about it was a demo where they had captured the orientation of your eyes, and it knew exactly where you were focusing on the screen. And what it was, to everybody that wasn't plugged into this control, it just looked like gibberish, just characters all over the screen. But the person was reading text, and it was able to determine exactly where they were focusing and deliver the characters that were appropriate for them. And it may even be that computer vision gets that kind of resolution just with cameras.
I think you'll see more of that even with like cell phones, right? Imagine right now, if I lose my cell phone, it's got it's password protected, so somebody can figure out the password, right? But what if it recognized my face and it wouldn't do anything until it knew that it was my face that was talking to it? And so there's a lot of other things you can potentially do with computer vision that are intriguing.
So you went to the Microsoft Connect all-day developer forum. So what is Microsoft's vision for the world? Where's the Connect going?
Well, it's difficult to parse. But right now, Microsoft, I think, was taken by surprise. Connect sold 8 million units. Their initial projections were, I think, 3 million.
I think
and then they revised it to 5 million.
Well, 10 million was, they set a Guinness Book of World Records. So it was 8 million in 90 days, and then the fastest consumer product in history.
Yeah, my point is that I think they're completely taken aback by the success to some extent, and they're trying to figure out what to do with it. There was this video that got leaked out, an internal marketing video that leaked out on the web a couple days ago, showing some of the potential. And it wasn't about Connect; it was about how we can modify games for Windows Live. But if you look at the behavior of the avatars in the video that they're showing, it was all Connect-like behaviors, all gesture recognition, doing broad stroke stuff. And you think, this is games for Windows Live. And what that implies is that Microsoft is thinking about this kind of thing for the PC, not just for consoles.
Well, for the longest time, so all of the people, these hobbyists, taking the Connect, they had to reverse engineer the signals from the chips on there and build their own API.
Well, actually,
but now Microsoft has released an API.
Actually, the Connect technology is based, I believe, on a technology developed by an Israeli company, if I remember correctly.
Well, PrimeSense does the chip, I know, for the depth.
But they have an API, and what they're doing is they're hacking that API into the Connect. But Microsoft is going to ship a PC SDK later this spring.
This spring, okay.
Yeah,
and they talk about that? Is it
absolutely? They're excited about it. They want people to get a hold of it and do stuff with Kinect, and they are. There's no. It's not. They're not saying. They're not just giving it to game developers. Anybody can get it. You can do cool stuff with it. Doesn't care. They don't care if it's a game, or you're controlling your vacuum cleaner, or you're controlling a robot inside of a nuclear reactor trying to clean it up. Because they're sort of timely about this. There's all kinds of potential uses for that.
And did they say where the Kinect technology is going? I mean, sort of decoupling it then from the Xbox, which is on a pretty slow pace for products. But now that you're in the PC infrastructure, I mean, first, what does Microsoft think is going to be the evolution of products there, and maybe who are the competitors?
You know, what'll be interesting to see is will Microsoft restrict this SDK only to their hardware, or will it be like DirectX, which will work with anybody's graphics card, provided that it's got the right set of hardware built into it, in which case there are opportunities for other people to jump into the Kinect space, maybe high resolution. You know, Kinect is only 320 by 240, right? The actual physical pixel resolution. It is 16-bit, you know, depth per pixel depth, of course, kind of cool, but the actual physical resolution, you can do interesting things with more resolution, especially if you're having multiple people involved doing it.
Right.
I see, imagine, if you will, 3 or 4 of these types of sensors in a room and creating a training environment where you're tracking multiple people at the same time, right? So there's a lot of interesting opportunities there, I think, that need to be exploited.
Okay. So what else did you see at the Microsoft conference? What else do you think we should be... and reading between the lines about what they're saying and where you think...
Well, one of the things they're talking about, of course, is identity and identifying people. In a multiplayer game, it's very important. You know, you want to know if player A is Scott Asnault and player B is Loyd Case, right? Okay. And in that case, you definitely want you don't want to get mixed up. And so they have a whole identity API built as part of the Kinect API. And then you extend that to things like, you know, security situations. You have identity API when people, instead of having to peer into a retinal recognition device or touch a screen, you know, they just catch you as you're walking in, and they'll either let you open the door or not, even if you have a key card. Right?
Oh, wow. So, well, we have time for one last question, and this is probably a good chance for you to look in your crystal ball and give us your futurist view. So let's say it's 5 years out. I mean, how quickly is this technology going to be adopted, and what do you think is going to be happening in the living room and in the den and on these portable devices?
I think kind of like the way these custom installers and these home control people adopted the iPad really fast, I think they'll adopt the sort of machine vision gesture recognition capability pretty quickly, because there are a lot of upsides to it, especially if you can build in the identification piece of it as well. You know, it doesn't even have to be strictly security. Imagine in a family situation, your 9-year-old daughter comes in and waves at the TV. Well, the TV then knows it's the 9-year-old daughter and doesn't let them watch Playboy Channel or whatever, right?
Or switch channels.
Right, or you can do all kinds of interesting things based on that kind of thing. So I think there's some real possibilities.
Well, Loyd, I really appreciate this time, and I'd like to encourage the members of the Embedded Vision Alliance community to continue this conversation online at embedded-vision.com. Certainly give us your feedback, comment on this video, and let us know what other topics you'd like to see us discuss with Loyd. Thank you very much.